Hello, everybody. My name is Max, and welcome to another listening exercise. In this exercise, we're going to take a look at part 3, another practice for part 3, and we're going to learn how to answer those questions correctly, how to find the traps, and how we can apply all those tricks that we talked about, into this part. And we're going to learn everything about this again. All right, so let's get started. All right, let's see what we have. So it says, you will hear 5 short extracts in which people talk about deciding to take up new interest. For question 19 to 23, choose from the list A to H the reason each speaker gives for deciding to take up their new interest. Use the letters only once, as we know, and there are 3 extra letters which you do not need to use. All right, so we have to take a look at the reason. In this audio file, we're going to find the reason each speaker gives for deciding to take up their new interests. All right, so that can be a little bit tricky because they might talk about other things, but that's not their real reason. So you got to be very careful. So the first one is A, to help other people, to make some money, to pass the time, to meet new people, to try to win a prize, to overcome a fear. Overcome means to just deal with it and not having that anymore. To get fit and to make a change from their work. All right, now what kind of pieces of advice do we have here? 3 people offer a service, but which one doesn't charge? So you have to be very, very careful for A. So you will hear 3 of these speakers. They offer service, but which one doesn't charge? So it's just for helping, it's not for money. B, which speaker had problems with money? So generally speaking, you have to find out if he had some kind of problems and what he would do in order to overcome that. And C, to pass the time. Be careful, one speaker gives this as a reason for not being interested in the activity. So be very careful. D, to meet new people. 2 speakers mentioned meeting new people, but only one had this as their main aim. Again, so it means that 2 speakers will talk about this, but one of them is not their main reason. It's not their main aim or goal. That's why I'm always telling you that you're understanding the general idea at first. The first time you listen is really important. So you listen the first time for the general idea, you understand the general idea behind all the things that he's saying, and then you focus on a specific information for the second time so that you find out whether he was definitely talking about that option or not. The next one, E, try to win a prize. Again, 2 speakers talking about winning competitions, but was that a main reason? You have to be very careful. If they talk about that and it was the main reason, that is the answer. If it was not the main reason for doing so, that's not the answer. The next one, F, think of other expressions for overcome and fear. I just mentioned some of that. So you're going to also hear. G, 3 speakers talk about being or getting fit, but was that their main purpose? Again, you have to be very careful. They're talking about exercise, getting fit, but you have to be very careful whether that's the main idea, that's the main purpose of that audio file, if that's the main goal. If not, that's not the answer. H, make sure it's the speaker's reason for taking up, not other people's, to make a change from their work. All right, if the person says that's my reason to do that, that's the answer. If other people are talking about it and they are saying that they want to make a change in their work, that's not the answer. We have to listen for the speaker, not his friends, his family, right? We have to just listen for each speaker. That can be a distraction. Be careful. Whenever in the audio file, other people are talking about the topic, that's not the answer. You have to always listen for the speaker. If that's his opinion, his action, he's doing, in that case, that is the answer. All right, now I'm going to play the audio file. You're going to listen to it twice. You'll pause the video after you heard all the audio files and play it again. Go back to the video, listen again, and we'll check the answers.
Speaker 1.
I've always been a keen swimmer and that keeps me in good shape. So when I made my mind up to do badminton, it was far more about socialising than exercising, especially as I'd only recently moved to this part of town and I hardly knew anyone. I hadn't realised, though, just how competitive badminton can be. So much so that I've now been invited to take part in a local championship. I've got no chance of winning it, or even coming close. And to be honest, I'm not really bothered about that. But it might be fun, so I think I'll give it a try.
Speaker 2.
I work part-time in a petrol station, which in some ways is quite a pleasant job, but last year I found that I was increasingly getting into financial difficulties. So I began to study the way electronic devices work and how to repair them. I found that fascinating, and eventually I felt confident enough to place an online ad offering my services. I got loads of replies, and I've now paid off nearly all my debts. I've thought of giving up my job at the petrol station, but I think I'd miss meeting different people every day if I worked entirely from home.
Speaker 3.
For years, I'd been so scared of heights that some people used to make fun of me. So one day, I decided to do something about it. Go rock climbing. Feeling that if I could do that, I'd be able to do anything, I joined a local club. On my first day, I was surprised to find there were 2 other people who joined for the same reason, and we soon became friends. Together, we got fitter and stronger and encouraged each other to keep going until, by the end of the year, we felt unconcerned about tackling the most challenging of climbs.
Speaker 4.
I never imagined that going horse riding could be such good exercise until I'd spent a weekend trekking in the mountains with friends. That was something of a bonus, really, because what had initially attracted me to it was that it offered a contrast in every respect to my day job as a cab driver in a noisy, polluted city centre. And although it's certainly not the cheapest of activities, I find it so relaxing that I always feel it's worth every penny.
Speaker 5.
Gardening had always seemed to me as just a way of passing the time, of doing something completely different from office work, or perhaps even, for the really keen, of winning a prize for the largest homegrown vegetable. So it was only by chance that I became interested in it, when the old lady next door asked me to look after her garden while she was away. On her return, she was so delighted by my efforts that I felt I'd done something really worthwhile. So I then offered to garden for other neighbours in their 80s and 90s. They sometimes offered me money, but I always refused to accept it.
That is the end of part 3.
Perfect. Now you can listen one more time, go back and listen again, and then we will check the answers. All right. Did you do it? Fantastic. Now you have your answers. I'm sure most of them are correct. Let's take a look at the answers together and see why speakers were talking about each of those options and why we have to choose the correct answer. For example, for number 19, the correct answer is D, which was to meet new people. Now, let's take a look at the answer. It says, I've always been a keen swimmer, and that keeps me in a good shape. So is this something that he's deciding to take up? No, not until now. So when I made my mind to do badminton, it was far more about socializing than exercise. So we can find out the reason was not exercising. The reason was socializing, which means to meet new people, especially as I'd only recently moved to this part of the town and I hardly knew anyone. So that is another reason, because she didn't know anybody, so she wanted to socialize, talk to more people. So definitely that's not the answer. which was exercising. Definitely, that's not. The correct answer is to meet new people. So we understand that it was not reason to get fit. G can be a little bit distracting here. And I hadn't realized, though, just now how competitive badminton can be. So much so, I've now been invited to take part in a local championships. I've got no chance of winning it or even coming close. And to be honest, I'm not really bothered about that, but it might be fun, blah, 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 blah. So you can see that's also denied the fact that she's trying to win a prize. She's not. She says that's not really important and it doesn't even bother me. All right, let's go to the next one. 20 is B, to make some money. Now, again, understanding the general idea here was really helpful, because if you can understand that generally he has some problems and he's trying to get some money to overcome all those problems, you could understand that the correct answer is B. Why? Because he said, I work part-time in a petrol station, which is in some ways is quite a pleasant job. But last year, I found that I was increasingly getting into financial difficulties. So understand that the topic is referring to, it's telling us what the topic is about. So I began to study the way electronic devices work and how to repair them. I found that fascinating, and eventually I felt confident enough to place an online ad offering my services. So definitely he's trying to earn some money, right? I got loads of replies and I've now paid off nearly all my debt. So you see, he's constantly talking about the same topic, earning money. And I've thought of giving up my job at the petrol station, but I think I'd miss meeting different people every day if I worked entirely from home. Now, he's a little bit talking about meeting different people, which is a little bit related to meet new people. And you can see exactly these are the same vocabulary. As I mentioned, you should not focus on the same vocabulary. You should understand the whole general idea, which if you just listen for the same vocabulary, you would definitely choose meet new people, which is not correct. And definitely you fall into the trap. So be very careful. It says I'd miss meeting different people is the same as meet new people. And definitely that's not the answer, as I said 10,000 times. All right, let's go to number 21. And the correct answer here is F, to overcome a fear. Now, how, again, this one also was related to understanding the general idea and then focusing on small or details information here. For example, it says, for years, I'd been so scared of heights that some people used to make fun of me. So one day I decided to do something about it, go rock climbing. So you can see this is referring to having some kind of a fear, and she's trying to do something about it, which means overcoming a fear. And what did she do? She went rock climbing. So feeling that if I could do that, I'd be able to do anything. I joined a local club on my first day. I was surprised to find there were 2 other people who joined for the same reason, and we soon became friends. So you see here, she's also talking about meeting new people. But is that the real reason that she met them or she joined that local group? No, that's not the reason. And all those people, they joined to overcome their fear as well. So you can see the topic is not referring to meeting new people. She's not basically talking about that. She says, yeah, I met some people, but that's not the real reason that she joined that local club. Together, we got fitter and stronger, again, to get fit. You see it again, there is another distraction. That's not the reason why she's doing it. While she's hiking, she's getting fitter. But is that a reason why she's doing that, rock climbing? No, that's not the reason. She's doing it and she's getting fit. It's like a side bonus of doing that. And definitely that's not the answer. And at the end, she said, until by the end of the year, we felt concerned about tackling the most challenging of climbs. So it means that she definitely overcame that fear and she's not as scared anymore. All right, 22. The correct answer is H, to make a change from their work. So at first, if you just listen again, if you don't listen until the end, probably you're going to fall into the trap at first, which he said, I never imagined that going horse riding could be such good exercise till I spent the weekend trekking in the mountains with friends. And if you just listen to here, it's referring to exercise and probably getting fit or something. But that's not the answer. It says that was something of a bonus. It means that was not my real interest, really, because what I initially attracted me, when you see these kind of words, you can understand now this is the answer he's talking. What initially attracted me to it was that it offered a contrast in every respect to my day job as a cab driver in a noisy, polluted city center. So that's definitely a change for him, because it says that's a completely different contrast, right? So it's definitely a change. And although it's certainly, no, whenever you see these words, then although it's blah, 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 that's not the answer, just distraction. And although it's certainly not the cheapest of activities, which means it was a little bit expensive, I find it so relaxing that I always feel it's worth every penny. So a little bit distraction about money here. So be careful. It's not related to making money. It's about losing money. So it's not definitely B. And that's the correct answer, which is H. Now, the last one, which is A, to help other people. This one was a little bit tricky because probably she talked about a lot of different things. Let's start with the first. It says, gardening had always seemed to me as just a way of passing the time of doing something completely different from office work. Now, this is a little bit referring to make a change from their work, right? But wait, we haven't finished. Or perhaps even for really keen of winning a prize for the largest homegrown vegetable. So it was only by chance that I became interested in it. So you see, she was always talking about the prize, right? To try to win a prize. But is that the real reason why she's doing gardening? Not yet. Wait. So she said, so it was only by chance that I became interested in it. When the old lady next door asked me to look after her garden while she was away. On her return, she was so delighted by my efforts that I felt I'd done something really worthwhile. So I then offered to garden for other neighbors in their 80s and 90s. So this is what she did. She was very delighted. She was very happy that she started helping other people. Now, let's see if it was for money. She said they sometimes offered me money, but I always refused to accept it. So definitely she was not doing it for money, and she was just because she felt really good and she felt like she's doing something worthwhile, useful, and she offered other people to do the same thing. So that was the real reason that she started doing this. And because of that, the correct answer is A, to help other people. So she was not doing it for money. She was not doing it for winning a prize. She was not doing it for changing her lifestyle or anything. Definitely all the other options were distraction, because as you can see, she mentioned it at the end that was the real reason. All right, so thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be very careful, as I always mentioned, and listen for the general idea rather than specific vocabulary. Definitely vocabulary, if you just listen one word and you think that's because of that word, the answer is that. No, that's not correct. Always listen for the whole idea and then listen for specific information they mentioned. And in that case, you can find the answer just like we did right now. All right, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.